But first, the ultimate cheat fakes. That's the focus of tonight's angle. All right, things keep getting weirder and weirder in Biden-Harris land. So it's last Thursday, early morning, 3 days before his own party would push him to drop out of the race. We were told that Joe Biden had tested positive for COVID. Now, for most adults, 4.5 years after the pandemic was called, getting COVID is like getting a cold. Nevertheless, Biden went into seclusion in Wilmington, and he hasn't been seen since. But late this afternoon, we heard his voice at a Kamala event.
By the way, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be out there in the campaign with her, with Kamala. I'm going to be working like hell, both as a sitting president, getting legislation passed, as well as in campaigning.
Yeah, that's reassuring. Now, the only reason he made that odd audio appearance is because so many people thought his disappearance was strange and even disturbing. None of this is normal. They make him sign a letter that no one believes he wrote. And then on Sunday, he followed it up with a tweeted endorsement of the woman who's been his vice president. Now, why wasn't that in the original letter? Oops. Now, I wouldn't hold my breath about seeing Biden tearing it up on the campaign trail, regardless of what he said this afternoon for Kamala. He couldn't campaign for himself. And now he's going to campaign for her? Yeah, okay. Now, maybe he shows up on camera tomorrow looking fit as a fiddle and ready to roar in the final months of, that he has in office. But come on, that's unlikely. After all, if that was the case, why would he have allowed his old friends to force him to drop his campaign? Remember, though, up until Sunday morning at like 11 o'clock, Biden, he was staying in the race.
He made a decision. He's going to be the candidate. He's going to be the next president. And now it's time to focus on the threat that Donald Trump poses.
It was time to move on, turn the page. Well, his comms team, let's face it, has tried its hardest to micromanage every formal event that Biden has done since basically his inauguration. But then we're supposed to believe this is how it all ends? It seems like there was zero preparation for an actual announcement. It was rushed out. The networks weren't alerted ahead of time, as they always are. I don't know, maybe Biden's people just didn't want another bad news cycle? I guess that's what it was. They needed this week badly. They badly needed it to be about how great Kamala is. But just as we saw with the lack of transparency over the attempted assassination of President Trump, which we're going to get to in this Kimberly Cheadle embarrassment shortly, conspiracy theories swirl in the absence of hard facts. And of course, we have no transparency here about Biden's condition whatsoever. So some Americans tonight, even with his audio, phone in to the Kamala event, people tonight are wondering, is Biden really okay? Is he even perhaps gravely ill? Yeah, come on, this has been the MO, though, of the Biden team, including Kamala Harris herself, for this entire administration. It goes something like this. Whenever they're questioned, whether it's on policy or Biden's medical condition, they deflect, demonize, and deny. No, the border is secure. Of course it's secure. There's no crisis. No, Ukraine isn't losing ground. They're winning. And no, Biden is not dropping out of the race. No, Biden is not impaired at all. It's all cheap fake. So it's conceal the facts and spin, spin, spin until the last possible second. That was Sunday, until they couldn't delay any further. So tell me, why should we trust a man who can't manage his own withdrawal from the campaign to run the country and be our commander-in-chief for the next 6 months?
Every single person who saw Joe Biden knew that he wasn't capable of doing the job, and for 3 years they said nothing until he became political dead weight. That is not a way to run a country. That is not a way to run a political party. That is an insult to voters.
Both Biden's absence and his presence is now signaling American weakness to our adversaries. And also, of course, it brings on the possibility of horrible outcomes over the next several months. So if we have a foreign policy crisis, if we have a financial crisis, a national security crisis, who's going to be making the big decisions? If Biden cannot discharge his duties, he needs to step down, and Democrats and Republicans together should be demanding that he step down. The White House isn't a nursing home. You don't get to live there because you're a nice old man who's been glad-handing in Washington for the past 50 years, and by the way, making your family rich in the process. This is literally the most important job in the world. And the fact is, Democrats have been willing to gamble, though, with our economy and our safety, frankly, for the past 3.5 years. They knew what Biden was all about. They knew he was in decline. And by the way, do you realize that the last time Biden was briefing House Democrats on Capitol Hill, about one of his main priorities was back in 2021. And we're only now learning that that briefing on Capitol Hill back in 2021 was a total disaster. He bungled it in trying to push his $1 trillion infrastructure bill, and Pelosi had to step in to take over. According to the Wall Street Journal today, in 30 minutes of remarks on Capitol Hill, Biden had spoken disjointedly and failed to make a concrete ask of lawmakers, according to Democrats in the room. After he left, a visibly frustrated Pelosi told the group that she would articulate what Biden had been trying to say. Now, they were hiding Biden's condition this entire time. And they were gaslighting all of us who were documenting his obvious decline. And those same people, those very same people, are now trying to convince us that Kamala Harris is some political juggernaut. She's historic. She's young. By the way, she's going to be 60 on Election Day. So all this Democrat happy talk about Harris's candidacy, her brilliance, it's just par for the course. Do not for a moment let it obscure a few simple truths. The Democrats put all of their chips on Biden, and they lost the bet. He's now going to go down in history as a failure who collapsed the first time he had to really defend his record on national TV. And then Biden was humiliated by his own party, who forced him out. And Kamala Harris was not the first choice of any Democrat to run against Trump. They all thought that she'd be weaker than Biden because she has all his policy baggage, including the abysmal failure at the border, but none of Biden's political talent or working class appeal. Remember, when she ran against him, she was forced to drop out before the Iowa caucuses. Total embarrassment. So the move to replace Biden with Harris, it's not some 3D chess move. It's a desperate move to replace their quarterback with an untested, unproven backup player. And no, Biden's not Drew Bledsoe, and Harris is not Tom Brady, so forget that. If they really thought that Harris could have done a job better than Biden, they would have forced him out months ago, but they didn't. So the bottom line is this. This is an unserious party run by petty, foolish people who always put their own personal interests ahead of what's best for the country. If they cared about the United States, they would have dumped Biden a long time ago. But he was just another political calculation. After all, he's a puppet, too. And once the numbers didn't work for the party power brokers, Biden was roadkill. But the American people don't deserve the same fate. And I don't believe they're going to fall for the Kamala sneak either. And that's The Angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.